Hello, you are listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. This is Jell, and at noon, I suggest you stay tuned, because we will have the news, the weather, and then GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. So please, stay tuned to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave for some diverse music for your diverse mind, and eventually, GameBabble Live. Thank you very much for listening, and enjoy the music. Coming up next, Break Me Down by Greek Fire. Currently, it is 76 degrees here on the campus of Florissant Valley Community College. I'm Jell with your noon news update. In local news, 3 police officers are recovering from injuries following a struggle with a suspect. The officers were called to the area of Chippewa and Morganford on Monday evening after getting a destruction of property report. The officers suffered non-life-threatening injuries while trying to take the suspect into custody. The suspect was hospitalized for self-inflicted injuries. 2 are hurt in a shooting near SLU Hospital. 2 people are hurt following a shooting near St. Louis University Hospital. The shooting happened around 7 o'clock last night near South Grand and Blaine Avenue. Police say the shooting left at least one of the victims in critical condition. Remaining LouFest performers announced. We now know all the artists that will be performing at LouFest. Rapper Snoop Dogg has been added as a headlining act. The event's organizers have also added the rap act Run the Jewels and the rock band Spoon to the list of performers. They will join acts like Weezer and Cage the Elephant on the concert lineup. The festival takes place from September 8th through the 10th in Forest Park. In national news, President Trump says he'll announce his decision on the Paris climate change deal in the coming days. He tweeted this morning as news reports surfaced he's decided to pull the U.S. out of the landmark accord intended to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The Paris Agreement was signed by nearly 200 nations in late 2015 and went into effect last November. A Pennsylvania man is in custody for carrying an assault rifle and a handgun into Washington, D.C.'s Trump International Hotel. D.C. police arrested Brian Moles around 2 o'clock this morning after receiving a tip from Pennsylvania State Police. Authorities say an AR-15 assault rifle was found in his vehicle, while a handgun was in the glove compartment along with 90 rounds of ammo. The Los Angeles area home of LeBron James has been hit by vandals, and it's being investigated as a possible hate crime. Los Angeles police were called to the home early this morning after someone noticed the N-word spray painted across the outer gate of the property. TMZ says the basketball star bought the home back in 2015, but reportedly doesn't stay there often. The heat is off a Nashville Predators fan who threw a catfish onto the ice during Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. Allegheny County, Pennsylvania District Attorney says the accusations against Jacob Waddle do not rise to the level of criminal charges. Waddle smuggled the catfish into PPG Paint's arena for Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final, hiding it in his pants. Okay. Also, home delivery of Big Macs and Quarter Pounders is expanding in the U.S. McDonald's chief executive Steve Easterbrook told shareholders that its delivery partnership with Uber Eats now reaches 2,000 locations. He said that by next month, more than 3,500 locations across the nation will have the capability to deliver to homes. In other news, America's obesity epidemic gets worse. Okay, it doesn't actually say that, but it may as well. Now on to the weather. Cripes. I think the last thing we needed was home delivery of Big Macs. On to the weather, please. On to the weather, please. Slight delay! As usual, we are having technical difficulties with our weather, but I can tell you one thing. We're pretty much looking at 80 degrees all throughout the week. There's a thunderstorm in the evening later on. I want to say Friday, Saturday-ish. There we go. It's back Saturday. Okay, so today, partly cloudy, high of 82, low of 61. Tomorrow, partly cloudy, high of 80, low of 65. Friday, high of 89, low of 70. Still partly cloudy, but Saturday, high of 88, low of 70, but we've got PM thunderstorms. And then Sunday, partly cloudy, high of 88, low of 63. In short, it's summer, and we've got a nice, good summer holding pattern on all this weather. It's going to be in the mid to upper 80s pretty much all week. Mostly high of 88s we're looking like. And it's going to be a little cloudy, so hopefully there won't be too much sun in everyone's eyes. And then we're going to get a thunderstorm on Saturday. And yeah, now everything is exploding. Anyway, that concludes our news and weather. So please stay tuned to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. For GameBabble Live after this short break. GameBabble Live is our video game news and information show which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. We've got a whole lot of stuff to talk about. There's been plenty of news developments. Friggin' Fighter-Geddon is happening right now. I got to play the Nintendo Switch ARMS Test Punch, so I've got some reports on that if you're curious. And Star Trek Bridge Crew came out yesterday, and I took up the command post of engineering. So if you want to find out how all that played out, stay tuned to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind, for GameBabble Live in just a few minutes. Until then, next up is On a Sunday by Our Great Escape. Enjoy, and thank you so much for listening to 89.5 FM. Hello, this is DJ Gel, and welcome back to GameBabble Live here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. And this, as I said, is GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. I'm your host, Gel. Let's get started because we love to start the show off with the newest game releases. You know, what comes out this week, what comes out next week, and then what anime is in theaters. Because, yes, there's anime in theaters, and it's coming. So, let's see. Where's PlayStation 4? PlayStation 4. This week, Bricks came out, which if you've ever seen those, it's essentially Breakout, but with, like, different PS4 themes. It's a really cheap-looking game. Crossout, Danger Zone, Energy Balance, Enigmatis to the Mists of Ravenwood, Locke's Quest, Oh, Sir, the Insult Simulator, Paddle vs. Paddle, which is another Pongular game, Polarity, Ultimate Edition, Star Trek Bridge Crew, which we will be discussing later in the show, Titanfall 2 Monarch Reigns, which I assume is a DLC expansion pack, Victor Vran Overkill Edition, and I guess maybe Limited Run Games released a copy of Ys Origins? Oh. Anyway, today, Damascus Gear Tokyo Battle HD Edition comes out, which I need to look into, because that's some kind of top-down mech game? Walking Dead Telltale Series, A New Frontier, Episode 5, From the Gallows, also came out today, as well as a game called Thea the Awakening, and on, what is that? Is that Friday? No, that's Thursday, so tomorrow. Tomorrow, Metal Slug 2 comes out, and then day after that, Last Blade and Tekken 7 comes out Friday. And unfortunately, I am going to need to take a quick break, and I will be right back, and we will try this again. So please enjoy Dr. Doctor by Building Rome. Thank you very much for listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Sorry about that. Hello and welcome back to GameBabble Live here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. This is GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. I'm your host, Gel. Sorry, when people just start tapping on the glass frantically, you usually think something's exploding or you're doing something wrong, especially when you're like... One of the things with this station is that we are non-profit, so I am not allowed to, like, promote things. I can't shill for stuff. Now, I was afraid that maybe doing the game release list was me shilling too hard, but it's not. So back to the game release list. What came out this week? Like I said, PlayStation 4, Bricks, Crossout, Danger Zone, Energy Balance, Enigmatis 2, The Mists of Ravenwood, Locke's Quest, Oh, Sir, the Insult Simulator, Paddle vs. Paddle, Polarity, Ultimate Edition, Star Trek Bridge Crew, which we'll be talking about later in the show, Titanfall 2 Monarch Reigns, I assume that's the expansion pack, Victor Vran, Overkill Edition, and probably a physical release of Ys Origin. I like Ys Origin, it's good. And then today, Damascus Gear Tokyo Battle HD Edition, The Walking Dead, The Telltale Series, A New Frontier, Episode 5 From the Gallows, Day of the Awakening. Tomorrow, Metal Slug 2. Day after tomorrow, The Last Blade, and Tekken 7. Which, yes, there will be a early release of that at GameStop if you pre-ordered it. They don't do midnight releases anymore because, well, no one wanted to stay up to midnight at GameStop, and what was the other thing? Oh yeah, it's the fact that once it's midnight on the East Coast, then all the embargoes on releasing the game are off. So, yeah, I think it's pretty much like when they close, 9 o'clock or something. I think they said people line up at 8, and then they'll give everyone their games at 9, 9:30 or something. I've got mine pre-ordered. I'm excited. I can't wait to play me some Tekken 7. Let's see. On the Xbox One, Crossout came out this week, along with Locke's Quest and The Walking Dead, The Telltale Series, A New Frontier, Episode 5 From the Gallows, Titanfall 2 Monarch Reigns, of course, Tropico 5 Complete Edition, hey, Victor Vran. Today, Dragon Brothers comes out, or Dragon Bros, I don't know how you want to read that, Starballs, Day of the Awakening, Tokyo 42, tomorrow Speedrunners comes out, and then, of course, day after tomorrow, Tekken 7. And then Nintendo Switch. Yesterday we got Astro Duel Deluxe and Perception, and then tomorrow we are getting the Ekoro from Galgun as a downloadable character for Blaster Master Zero. Yay! Let's see, what else have we got here? PlayStation Vita, game called Shu, and also Ys Origins came out. So good times there, and 3DS. We just have EX character Ekoro for Blaster Master Zero again, and a game called Of Mice and Sand. So, on to next week. What's coming out next week? Well, let's see. On PlayStation 4, we have Claddun Returns. This is Sengoku. Claddun is actually a action roguelike game where you get to, actually draw your own character. It's kind of funky. Because, it just has that much customization that you can just draw the sprites for your character if you want to. So that's kind of neat, and this one's going to be Japanese-themed. Also a game called Dark Rose Valkyrie, which sounds like something I should pay attention to. Dirt 4, Perception, which didn't Perception come out? Whatever. Super Beat Exonic is coming to PlayStation 4, which is interesting, because if I recall, that's one of Konami's music games that's been in arcades, so that's interesting. It says the Morrowind expansion for Elder Scrolls Online is next week, along with a game called The Town of Light, and Wipeout Omega Collection, which is supposed to be a collection of Wipeout games. I think it's a new one, but they're, incorporating all the content from all the Wipeouts or something. I haven't been paying nearly enough attention to that one. Also, a few days later, on the 9th, we get Rogue Stormers, which is kind of like a 4-player roguelike Contra? Neat indie game. Been on Steam for a while. Let's see, next week for the Xbox One, Dirt 4, Neighbor Horde, Perception, Elder Scrolls Online Morrowind expansion, The Town of Light, and the day after that is Refunked Super Beat Exonic and a game called Zazen, and then Rogue Stormers as well on the 9th. Nintendo Switch, next week is a game called Goner. Okay. PlayStation Vita, next week, Farming Simulator 18 and Demo The Last Recital. 3DS, next week, is Farming Simulator 18. And I do believe that wraps up our new game releases. But, what anime will be in theaters? Well, Black Butler, Book of the Atlantic, will be in theaters June 12th and 14th. It says June 12th is going to be subbed, June 14th is going to be dubbed. So, if you're a fan of Black Butler or just want to see an anime in theaters, that's when you want to see that. And then we have the G-Kids stuff, which is, they are doing a thing called Ghibli Fest, and every month they are putting a new Ghibli film in theaters. My Neighbor Totoro, in case you missed it earlier this month, will be back in theaters June 25th and 26th. And then July, we've got Kiki's Delivery Service on July 23rd and 24th. August, Castle in the Sky, 27th and 28th. September 24th and 25th is Nausicaa Valley of the Wind. October 29th and 30th is Spirited Away. And then November 26th and 27th is Howl's Moving Castle. So, I will have at least one anime per month to report on for as long as I'm doing this show. I don't know how long I'm going to get to, but at least until December. So good times, good times. So that is the new game releases and what anime is in theaters. Also, I'd like to follow up by mentioning the Game FAQ's Best Year in Gaming poll. Sure enough, 1998 did win, as it darn well should have, but I'm surprised. Apparently its opponent was 2001. Didn't think about that. And prior to that, it came down to 2001, 1997, 1994, and 1998. So, we know which era of gaming is held most dearly in a lot of people's hearts. That's actually pretty important. And yeah, I complained about the fact that 1985, didn't get anywhere. But, you know what? I think maybe rather than best, I should say most important. I think 1985 was the most important year in gaming. And not just because that was the year I was born. That, every time I'm researching video games, 1985 just comes up a lot. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed new game release list and all that. Now it's time, ironically, it's time for, time to get back to the music with a song called No Games by Heart Asylum featuring T-Dub-O. Here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Please stay tuned, because after a brief break, we will be back with more GameBabble Live, and I will bring you all sorts of video game news. We'll be talking about the ARMS Test Punch, how it was playing Star Trek Bridge Crew and being engineering in that, along with so many other things. Like, hey, guess what? There's actually, going to be affordable Nintendo Switch controllers. Yeah, got a scoop on that as well. So please stay tuned to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave while we kick you back to the music, and I hope you enjoy. Again, next up is No Games by Heart Asylum featuring T-Dub-O. Hello, and welcome back to GameBabble Live here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell. This is GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. So, before the break, we discussed what games are coming out and what anime is in theaters, because we got anime this month, Black Butler movie, and then My Neighbor Totoro, good times. And now it's time for video game news, most important thing to a lot of people. There is apparently a series of wireless controllers for PC, Android, and iPhone called 8BitDo, which are, themed after old NES, Super NES controllers. Well, good news, everyone! There is a firmware update for these controllers that will make them work on the Nintendo Switch. This is important because, while I am not allowed to name prices, I will tell you right now, Nintendo Switch controllers are the most ludicrously priced thing ever. Nintendo Switch accessories are the most ludicrously priced thing ever. A third of the Nintendo Switch's price is the controllers. Suddenly all that HD rumble and optical rock, paper, scissors detectors to tell when you're eating an invisible sandwich don't sound like such a good idea anymore. Now, do they, Nintendo? I don't know what exactly caused the price of Nintendo Switch controllers to be so stupid, but there is literally no denying that it is the stupidest thing about the Nintendo Switch is the price of its controllers and accessories, which is irritating because Nintendo consoles, their best aspect is usually their local multiplayer, right? You like the local multiplayer? I like the local multiplayer. But then, you go out, you're like, I'm going to buy a new controller for my Nintendo Switch. And then you see the price of a new controller for your Nintendo Switch. You go, I'm never buying a new controller for my Nintendo Switch. The prices are freaking ludicrous, but these are cheaper. 8-bit-do controllers are cheaper. But, this is the most important but, if Nintendo wants to, they could be a but. They could go ahead and say, hey, these controllers are not authorized through Nintendo, and through a firmware update to the Switch, they could remove the compatibility for them. I don't know if they're going to do that. Hopefully they won't do that. It would make me happy if they left these controllers alone. But that is a possibility, so fair warning. But it's going to be slightly harder to do that too, though perhaps not impossible. Hori is also releasing cheap Switch controllers coming in July. And they will be a little bit cheaper than the 8-bit-do controllers, but they are wired. The 8-bit-do controllers are wireless, and the Hori controllers are wired. The reason why that's a quote-unquote problem is because there's no way to hook a wireless controller up to the Switch when it's not docked. As far as I've noticed anyway. Like, all the USB ports are on the dock. So that is going to limit what you can do with the controller. And speaking personally, I don't think the price difference is big enough to sacrifice the wirelessness. And in the case of both of these controllers, the 8-bit-dos and the Horis, they have no motion sensing, no rumble, no amiibo scanners, obviously no optical rock, paper, scissors detectors. So, they can't do a lot of things, but at the same time, that's what we want. We want just a cheap controller for playing games with friends, which Nintendo themselves should have released. In fact, if Nintendo's smart, seriously, if anyone with any relation to Nintendo is listening, tell them they need to release Nintendo Switch Lite controllers. Because that's what you call it. You call it a light controller, you sell it on the stupid cheap, and it's there to play basic games with friends when you want to go 4-player and stuff. Playing Bomberman, Bomberman. People like Bomberman. There's a Bomberman on the Switch. But getting more controllers to play some Bomberman is kind of a pain in the butt. So, man, now that I think of it, I don't even want to think about what the next Mario Party is going to be like, because it's probably going to use all those dumb controller features. I'm not going to think about Mario Party. Okay. But yeah, that's the good news, is that, yes, there are cheaper solutions to Nintendo Switch controllers. Now, personally, I have not tried an 8-bit-do controller, so I don't know what the build quality is like. I say this because I know about the retro-bit controllers. If you've never seen them, never ever purchase a retro-bit controller. Literally every single retro-bit controller I've ever owned has broken almost instantly. Like, I got an NES and a Super NES USB retro-bit controller. Like, that's the thing. They're like, hey, they're like old game controllers, but they're USB. My NES one broke in like 2-3 days. And my Super NES one only took a few months. And then a friend of mine picked up one that looks like a Sega Saturn controller, because that's a really good controller, and his, like, out of the box, one of the buttons was broken on it. The retro-bit controllers are just terrible build quality. And they're all over the place, because, you look at them and you think, oh, hey, I'm going to be able to have, like, a retro game controller. It'll be great for my emulators on the PC. And then you use it, and it falls apart. And that's why I'm a little wary, but I haven't heard anything super negative about the 8-bit-dos. And the fact that they're putting in wireless, I mean, you don't spend money on wireless technology if your controller build quality is going to be that bad, at least theoretically. Anyway, moving on. Final Fantasy 15 sent out an in-game survey to ask what DLC people want. Because they want to keep expanding Final Fantasy 15. They're like, hey, would you like this character to be playable? Would you like this story chapter? And a lot of people are just looking at it and going, I want all of it, and I want it in the game back when it launched. Because I admit I've spent very little time with Final Fantasy 15 personally. I gave it a rent, and it's all right, but I just felt the combat was too shallow. But the general consensus for a lot of people on 15 is that running around and just slaying monsters in an open world is pretty fun. Doing the side quests, just exploring. but the actual main story is a disaster, and I will second that, because the game makes almost no sense if you didn't watch Final Fantasy XV Kingsglaive, which is the movie, and I'm gonna say that movie is pretty great. I like it. The movie stands on its own just fine. Loved that movie, actually. I would say it's the best of the Final Fantasy attempts at movies and TV series. And yes, I've seen Legend of the Crystals and Unlimited. I've seen all of the Final Fantasy attempts at movies and anime series. I would absolutely say Kingsglaive was the best of them. And with Kingsglaive, okay, 15's fine. Without it, the game kind of starts abruptly. It's like, hey, Noctis, go. Go out, find your bride, get married, bye. That's kind of how the game starts, and then the car breaks down. It doesn't explain the world, or what's going on, or much of anything, and you have to read through text dumps to get that. And even then, the story just comes off really sparse. And I'm sorry, what happened with, what was it, Chapter 13? Where they actually had to rehire the voice actors to do a free patch to fix how bad the plot was in Chapter 13 of the game? That doesn't happen. 15's kind of a mess, but at the same time, I'm hearing that it was in an even worse state before it was handed off to Tabata, so... Hey, here's something crazy. Earth Defense Force 5 looks like it'll be coming to America this summer. Now with giant pillbugs. Yeah! I like pillbugs, so I'm pretty happy about swarms of giant pillbugs. If you've never played an Earth Defense Force before... oh, you are in for a treat. Now, I will tell you they are rough. They come from budget game stock. There absolutely will be frame rate issues and slowdown. There's frame rate issues and slowdown in the trailer. It is literally expected of this series to have frame rate issues and slowdown. So why are we rejoicing? Because, due to its bizarre slapdash nature, it's an amazing game series. What Earth Defense Force is you ever see a cheesy sci-fi movie and you have, like, the little cannon fodder troops on the ground with the model tanks? Yeah, that's you. You get to be the guys that Godzilla steps on. And I mean that literally, because you do fight Godzilla on foot. I would recommend taking a bazooka with you. Bazookas, I generally find it to be the best weapon in Earth Defense Force, but that's what the game is. You're just dumped into a fully destructible city, and then they throw giant things at you. They usually start with the giant ants, and then they move up to the giant spiders, and then there's other kinds of giant spiders, and then you get UFOs and big old robots, and then they send Godzilla after you. And yeah, this time I know there's going to be giant frogs giant frog people in spacesuits with guns that can, like, use buildings as cover. So please, just level the whole city. It's great, and all the games have been two-player split-screen co-op, and as of Earth Defense Force 4, now they've added in, now they have 4 different classes, each with their own array of weapons, and you can play 4-player online, and it's all about collecting those weapons, because there's, hundreds of different weapon variations on there. It is an absolute blast, as long as you're not expecting anything polished. Because it's not polished. It's never polished. It's not meant to be polished. The number one priority is chaos. Getting as many enemies and destruction on screen as possible. Either way, Earth Defense Force 5 is shaping up to be really good. Visually, it's kind of because it's Earth Defense Force. It's going to have slowdown issues and frame rate problems, but it looks like it'll be a blast once again. So yes, but what surprises me is the fact that it looks like it's coming to America this summer. It's not out in Japan yet. But the thing was they just released this Japanese trailer saying, yo, game's coming in July, and then the US subtitled version of that trailer also came out saying it's coming in, did they say July? I think they said summer. I'm expecting July. 4th of July would be. Come to think of it, most of the Earth Defense Forces recently have come out in July. Yeah, Earth Defense Force 4 hit Japan on the 4th of July, I think. Which is the best time to play Earth Defense Force. Gotta make those fireworks happen. Speaking of low-budget Japanese games, though, anyone interested in Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash? The only physical release of the game will be the special edition. Again, I can't say prices, but it's only a little more expensive than the regular edition, and it's a nice special edition at least. It's going to have soundtrack and an art book and a DVD, it might be a Blu-ray, of like all the anime intros to all the previous Senran Kagura games, on top of some DLC. Only a smidge more expensive than a regular physical release, but it is a shame that this is the only physical release, but since it's only a smidge more expensive, it's like, I'll roll with it. I've been playing Senran Kagura. I need to actually play it again, because they've been patching that thing like crazy for balance issues, which is a thing I really respect. They did that for Estival Versus as well, where they released regular patches. And actually, in Japan, they just released the Ikitosen characters for Peach Beach Splash as well. So, okay, that's a thing. So anyone interested in that game, yeah, just be forewarned. It's special edition only for physical. Speaking of special editions, Reebok is making special Final Fantasy XII Judge Master limited edition shoes. These will be overpriced and hard to find, and you'll never want to wear them on your actual feet. And they have a cool pattern, but they look kind of dumb. Go ahead and Google them. But yeah, Reebok's making Final Fantasy XII shoes. Speaking of Final Fantasy, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Because, yeah, news report came out from Square Enix, and they said, oh, Final Fantasy VII Remake and the Kingdom Hearts 3, they're coming in 3 years or so. People are not happy about this, especially because 2 years ago, Square Enix said the main scenario for the first entry in the Final Fantasy VII Remake is already complete. That's what they said. They were like, we got the main thing done. We just got to polish it up and add some side quests. We good. It's ready to go. We've been working on this. And now they're like, in 3 years. Remember, Final Fantasy VII is going to be episodic. So, yeah, as if it didn't have enough going against it, it's going to take a while. And they've also decided to cut off ties with CyberConnect 2 and just develop the game internally. Which most people would be like, oh, that's good. I mean, Square Enix is a bigger, more respectable company than CyberConnect 2, right? I question that anymore. CyberConnect 2 is pretty okay. If you don't remember them, they did the Dot Hack games and a lot of the Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm games and Ashura's Wrath. So they can make some flashy action stuff that's pretty fun. If not necessarily deep, and I would consider that to be an improvement, or at least on par with Final Fantasy 15. That's the thing I'm worried about, is the fact that Final Fantasy 7 Remake is going to be an action RPG. I don't even know how that's going to go. Speaking of which, CyberConnect 2 just celebrated, like, their anniversary thing with a, like, picture they tweeted out of the Little Tail Bronx series, which is Tail Concerto and, Solito Robo, and then there was, like, a phone game called Little Tales Bronx. Point is, I think they might be making a new entry in that series. Fingers crossed, because I love that universe. I love Tail Concerto. I really wish I could find a copy of it. Like, let me put it to you like this. I went to V-Stock once. I was like, okay, how much is a used Tail Concerto going to run? They're like, we've never gotten one ever in our entire company's history. It's not in our system. And I'm like, oh, crap. If you never played Tail Concerto, it's a PS1 game that's basically Bubble Bobble meets Mega Man Legends. If you can imagine that. If you can imagine Bubble Bobble as a 3D action RPG with dog people and steam-powered robots, that's what Tail Concerto was. I love that game. That was CyberConnect's, like, first game. If you played Dot Hack, they advertised it all over the place. And I really regret the fact that I never beat the friggin' thing. So I don't know where my copy is. I might have loaned it to a friend before it was worth money, and now I'm like, actually, shoot, I shouldn't have told you all that, because it's still, like, semi-reasonable on eBay right now. There is no, the demand is not major yet. Shouldn't have told you, shoot! Also, speaking of big news, there's a whole lot of controversy and dumb surrounding Far Cry 5 right now. All I'm going to say is that petition is fake. It's pretty much confirmed fake. There's a bunch of people looking into it. It looks like just some random person made the petition and then started spreading it around in order to in order to cause controversy, and everyone's falling for the bait. But no, Far Cry 5 has every right to exist no matter what the content is, and I absolutely support whatever the heck Far Cry 5 is. And yeah, the petition's fake. Ignore all the gaming news sites. They're terrible. Anyway, moving on. Hey, guess what? It's Fightergeddon. Freaking Fightergeddon. You know what? We'll save talking about Fightergeddon until after the next break, because we're coming up on the next break time. Like I said, there's a lot of news this week. So moving on past fighting game news, we'll get that after the break. Looks like Little Witch Academia is getting a PS4 game with some really nice cell shading and is very expressive. It might actually be a beat-em-up or action RPG, which is weird. If you're unfamiliar with Little Witch Academia, look it up on YouTube because it's free. Like, literally. It was Studio Trigger, which is some people who split off from Gynax and made Kill la Kill in order to advertise their studio and get more people working for them and get people hyped for Studio Trigger. They made a short called Little Witch Academia, because there was like this festival of anime shorts where different studios show off what they can do in order to attract people, and they made Little Witch Academia. Everyone fell madly in love with it because it's adorable and expressive and fun, to the point where they kickstarted a second episode. That's apparently floating around somewhere. And I forget if it's getting an actual TV series or not, but it's getting a PS4 game. So that's a thing. Also, apparently, Farpoint and the AIM bundle is kinda hard to find. I say kinda, because if you go to, like, it really seems like people just aren't stocking it properly. If you're unfamiliar, I talked about this 2 weeks ago. Farpoint is a first-person shooter for the PlayStation VR, and you can you can play it and buy it without the AIM, but then it's kind of dumb. What you want to do is you want to buy the big, expensive bundle that comes with a big plastic VR gun, and then it's pretty awesome. Unfortunately, it has proved to be a little hard to find, and people are trying to scalp for it on eBay, and it's like, no. Like, and that's weird, because it's like, how many people have a PlayStation VR that it's worth scalping people on this thing? That's what people are attempting to do. And what it looks like is, like, only certain stores have stocked it properly. Because, like, GameStop did not get nearly enough in. It's like, if you didn't pre-order it, you just didn't get it. And I don't think they're really keeping Farpoint on the shelves. And then on the flip side, like, Best Buy had, like, a special promotional deal. And just Target has generally been really good about getting those in stock. That's where I got mine. Launch day, I went to Target, they had 3 of them sitting on the shelves. And I say that, I shouldn't be promoting things, but I've said 2 different stores from different companies. I don't think that counts as promotion. I shouldn't say anything that sounds that promotion-y, but you don't want to go on eBay. Apparently, actually, that's right. Someone on the PlayStation VR Reddit mentioned there's a thing called, like, Shelf Finder or something. I need to look that up. I'll get back to you on that, because there's something where if you type in the SKU, you can search, like, all the stores in your area, and it'll tell you which one has any products of that SKU in stock, and that would be the best way to go if you're trying to find the Farpoint bundle. Point is, don't even give those scalpers a dime, because they're just trying too hard at this point. Screw them. Moving on. Summer Lesson Allison Snow 7 Days Garden is coming to Japan June 22nd, and I am happy. If you're unfamiliar, Summer Lesson is a very odd and slightly infamous PlayStation VR game where you play a teacher trying to help a Japanese schoolgirl do better on her test. It plays a lot like Princess Maker, and the point of it is, like, VR interaction with a character. It's actually made by the Tekken team, and it pretty much happened when they were messing around with VR for Tekken, which Tekken 7 will have some light VR support, but they were, like, going into the model viewer, and they were kind of weirded out by how it felt seeing a video game character, like, life-size standing in front of you in 3D, and they were like, we could build a game off of this. So that's what Summer Lesson is. It's kind of like a super short version of Princess Maker. There's a reason it's called 7 days, is because you only have a week to improve the grade. So you can play through the game in like 45 minutes, but there's a bunch of different scenarios that can play out. And that's the point. Anyway, when they first showed off Summer Lesson, they showed this blonde American girl, and you were supposed to help teach her Japanese or something. And, that was like the infamous character. And then later on, they introduced the Japanese schoolgirl, Hikari Miyamoto. And then when the game came out, it was just Hikari, and people were like, what happened to the blonde? Well, apparently, and I predicted that they were going to sell each one as a different game, and sure enough, apparently her name is Allison Snow, and that's when that's releasing in Japan. It'll likely, the Hikari Miyamoto one did get an Asian English release with subtitles, like a couple months later once they finished all the DLC, because in Japan, they sell like a base game at a lower price and then a bunch of DLC expansions, and then after all of them, they do the complete disc. Doing the same thing here, and yeah, so it'll have an Asian English release a few months later. Also, it will interact with anything you downloaded from the previous game, so any downloadable costumes and content and things may show up in the new game as well. There could be some interaction between the two, so that's super cool. Either way, I'm happy. I'm probably going to download the Japanese one as soon as it comes out. She speaks English. I just don't know what I'm saying, because I apparently speak Japanese in this game. And for some reason, there are a million River City Ransom games coming out. We went from no River City Ransom games for decades to all of a sudden just here, have all of them. Have everything. Because they just announced sometime this summer for the 3DS, we are getting River City Knights of Justice, which is a River City Ransom game with a fantasy theme, where all the characters are like knights and mages. And apparently that came out in Japan like 3 years ago. I didn't know, but it's coming to America as River City Knights of Justice this summer. And then later on, River City Rival Showdown is coming, which is actually a remake of the original River City Ransom for the 3DS, except this one's going to be Japanese accurate. Like, it's not going to be Alex and whatever the other guy's name is. They're not going to be wearing t-shirts and jeans. It's going to be a proper translation of Downtown Neketsu Monogatari, I think it's called? Whatever, the Kunio game. The one that came out in Japan. This is going to be the accurate translation of it. And, yeah, and it'll be on 3DS and it'll be super enhanced. That could be super cool. I'm seeing a lot of fun stuff there. Also, gotta wrap this up quick. Shantae Half Genie Hero is coming to Switch, and it will be out in Europe June 8th. So I expect it to be out in America, like, around the same time. It would be very weird if it came out in Europe first, unless it's like a placeholder date. And also, important news, if you like Dead or Alive 5, some of the licensed costumes are being delisted. The Fairy Tail crossover costumes will be delisted June 20th. The Attack on Titan costumes and stage will be delisted July 18th. And this will also delist the Season Pass that has those two on it, along with its Season Pass exclusive outfit, which was Ayane in one of Tengu's fancy kimonos. Anyway, that should about wrap that up. I told you, lots of news this time. We need to get you a break, and I need to get myself a freaking drink. So please enjoy We On by Miss Thoroughbred. And, yeah, and then after that, we'll be back with Fightergeddon. So, thank you for listening to 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave, diverse music for a diverse mind. I'm your host, Jel. Please stay tuned and enjoy the music, and thank you for listening. Woo, hello, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jel, and have way too much to talk about this week. So, Fightergeddon, whatever happened to the summer game drought? Anyone remember that? Anyone remember when in summer, like, no games came out, and that's when you caught up on everything that came out, like, earlier that you didn't get around to, but at the same time it was kind of boring. It's like, I'll get something new. And I remember that. I remember that's when I played Spectrobe's Origin on the Nintendo Wii, which was pretty alright. Mostly for the co-op. Like, Spectrobe's Origin, it's okay as a single player, but the co-op is, like, mind-blowing. Also, Cactus Dragons. It has Cactus Dragons, and that's awesome. I need to just do an episode on Spectrobe's Origin. I have a soft spot for that weird mess. But, yeah, there have been a lot of games coming out this summer, especially fighting games, and this is looking to become a theme. Because I remember this happening last May, too. Like, either last May or the May before it, a bunch of fighting games came out. And it's happening again. It's one after another. So, at the beginning of the month, we had Injustice 2 come out, right? So, okay, fine. Injustice 2, kicking it off with that. Then they're like, hey, Street Fighter V Season 3 starts. Here's first new character of that, which is this guy named Ed. So, okay. Ed is out for Street Fighter V. New character for that. Good. And then there's the expansion pack for Guilty Gear Xrd Revelator, which is Guilty Gear Xrd Rev 2, which can be purchased either as a separate game or as a downloadable expansion. One thing that's kind of interesting about that is that if you don't already own the DLC characters for Guilty Gear Xrd Revelator, it's actually cheaper to buy the physical complete release rather than the expansion. But at the same time, if you were playing Revelator back when it came out, then you got those DLC characters for free. I think. I forget if I paid money for Dizzy. I might have paid money for Dizzy. Whatever, I'm getting the expansion next time I can, because apparently they have added more story chapters, and that's what I'm enjoying about Guilty Gear. I love that story mode. If you've never played it, you don't play it. It is literally, you just sit there and watch an anime. It's kind of cool. But, okay, so, got that, and then Killer Instinct has just announced that it will be getting more characters, starting with what looks to be Chief Thunder's brother, Eagle, who was captured and turned into a Fulgore. Well, I guess he got de-Fulgored. There has only been a teaser trailer, but what you can see, but you have, let's see, Native American-themed music. It's on Chief Thunder's stage. He has, like, little cyber bits still stuck to him. You see that he clearly uses a bow, because there's arrows shooting into the ground. And there's a robot Hawk Falcon thing following him around. And that's always a good sign. When you've got robot birds. I just looked at it, I'm just like, Silver Hawks. Good times. So, that was also announced. Ultra Street Fighter 2 came out for the Nintendo Switch, and I can't believe people actually care about that mess. If you're unfamiliar, literally a decade ago, they redid Street Fighter 2 with HD sprites and called it Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix. And people really didn't like the HD sprites because they looked awkward in motion, because they didn't add any more frames of animation, and they had comic book artists instead of animators doing the sprites, so there were some weird inconsistencies with them. And yeah, they pretty much just took that, put it on Switch, added Evil Ken and Evil Ryu, and are charging over twice as much for it. Now, to their credit, they've added in... Oh yeah, and the netcode is actually worse than the game from a decade ago. But they've added in a couple extra features as well, like Dramatic Battle, and a nice high-quality digital art book, and a mode where you flail your arms to throw Hadoukens. That's actually really, really stupid. But it is out for Switch, but it just weirds me out that there's so many people that look at it and go, oh, yeah, that are actually getting excited about Ultra Street Fighter 2, the Final Challengers, because, like, you're kind of being swindled by this game. Like, it does not have enough content. Also, the custom colors are irritating, because there's certain random things you can't change the color of, and they have special limiters in place to prevent you from making Cammy naked. I'm not even kidding. They are there's just a lot of weird random limiters in there to prevent offensive color combinations, which this is the first time I've ever seen anything like that happen. It's just, apparently it's pretty unworkable if you're not using the touchscreen. It looks, Ultra Street Fighter 2 looks like kind of a mess. It has a lot of instant kill combos that people are doing in it, and I don't know why people are excited for it. It should be a much, much cheaper game than it actually is. It's even weirder seeing people getting excited about the HD sprites, although I think they do weirdly look better than they did in HD Remix. At least the retro sprites look nice, because that was the worst part of HD Remix, is you could switch back to the retro sprites, except the retro sprites were, really badly scaled and looked really bad. So that, at least that was fixed. If you switch to retro sprites, it looks fine, but man, Ultra Street Fighter 2. And then, Tekken 7 comes out, which I already mentioned. GameStop's doing an early release of that on Thursday because, of course, once it's midnight on the East Coast, all the embargoes go off, and they all want to get home early. And, Tekken 7 is looking very exciting, and it will have a VR mode. That is incredibly limited. You can go to a character viewer in VR, and you can fight on an empty stage in VR, and that's it. And it's not like first person. Don't get excited about that. No, it's third person. It's just, you can look around. And honestly, as a bonus feature, that's pretty cool. Don't buy it as a VR game. Absolutely not. But as a bonus feature, it's nice. I just hope I can actually, fight and win on that stage, because I've really only seen training mode on the blank stage. It's can I actually fight computer opponents there? And if you're wondering, why is it only on a blank stage? Well, on a regular PS4 as it is, Tekken 7 does not run at 1080p. You gotta have a PS4 Pro to run it at 1080p. It runs at 720p. But it maintains a 60 FPS. But when you're doing VR, you need two 60 FPS image feeds. And so if they had the whole hyper-detailed background, that would be too taxing if they just did it raw, that is. I think they could probably get a lot of that to work in VR if they really, really tried, but obviously this wasn't prioritized as a VR game. They're just slapping VR on there for the heck of it. So that's why that's happening. And, and also, as a pre-order bonus for Tekken 7, you can get the character DLC of Eliza. If you don't remember Eliza, she was the character added to Tekken Revolution, which was that awful, awful free-to-play Tekken game that no one cared about, and then they were like, we're actually going to add a new character, all the fans can vote on it, and we all voted on Crazy Vampire Girl. And, that was Eliza. She apparently lives in Lily's basement. Whatever. And she falls asleep a lot, so narcoleptic vampire. But that game, the servers are offline. You cannot play it anymore. That character was this close to being lost to time, but now she's back. And I'm actually kind of excited about it, because I really wanted to try her out. She looked like fun, and she has Reppukens. She can do a double Reppuken. What? To say nothing about her character-specific gimmick, which I'm not going to get into. But, it's... I'm happy to see that Eliza is back. There's tons of characters I want to play in Tekken 7. I'm really excited about it, even though I'm actually not a Tekken fan. But I have a laundry list of characters I want to play as, and I can't wait to try it out. It's going to be good. It's going to be good times. So Tekken 7 is happening. I feel like, wasn't there... I mentioned the DOA 5 licensed costumes in the Attack on Titan stage are being delisted, so if you want them, get them now. And I think that covers Fighter-Geddon. Technically no. Because after Tekken 7, fine, Tekken 7 comes out, 1st, 2nd of June, but June 16th, ARMS for the Nintendo Switch. So Fighter-Geddon, I don't think officially ends until ARMS hits. So Oh, we've gotten so many new fighters. There are too many fighters to play. Tekken 7, Guilty Gear Xrd Rev 2, Injustice 2, Ultra Street Fighter 2, I guess. New characters for Street Fighter 5 and Killer Instinct. Really, the only one that's not stepping up to the plate is DOA this year. Last year, that's when they released Mai Shiranui, if I recall correctly. Which, that was a thing. And I think last year was when KOF 14 came out, too. Either way, all that's happening. And if you're wondering, the Guilty Gear Xrd Revelator 2 upgrade just came out for PC like today or yesterday, I think. It was only a few days behind the console release. So, good news for all you PC gamers. I'm sure we're all happy about that. I don't like seeing PC gamers get screwed any more than they like seeing console gamers get screwed. Actually, they might like seeing console gamers get screwed, but screw them. Good times for everyone. Good times. Everyone's happy. So yeah, that is a whole lot of fighting gamery. And I think now would be a good time to take a quick break before I talk for ages about ARMS, because I played the Test Punch. I streamed it 3 times, so if you want, you can hit up the GameBabble YouTube channel to watch some of those streams. Come to think of it, I have not put up the motion-controlled one, I don't think. And that's the one you want to see, because I got really sick of ARMS' motion control, but then I was like, okay, that one Japanese, pre-release tournament, they forced him to use motion control. Maybe there's something more to the motion control, so I was like, I'm going to do a whole stream, motion control, picture-in-picture, here's me, got it all timed up and synced, and I got into a lobby of all Japanese players that were doing really good. And you watch me visibly just get frustrated in that stream. Because halfway through, I just give up on the motion controls. And this is me we're talking about. I am one of the world's biggest proponents of motion control. But when I say motion control, I mean real motion control. Not this waggly BS. The motion control in ARMS works, but it doesn't work anywhere near well enough for my taste. But we'll get into that shortly after a break, because, oh my God, I need a drink. A non-alcoholic one, for the record. I don't drink. But I've been talking a lot. There's so many things happening. So, I'm going to kick you back to the music. Next up is My Way by Calvin Harris, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy, and stay tuned for more GameBabble Live. Thank you. Hello and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. and will continue to do so all summer long. And, oh, geez, my computer's exploding with myself. Stop that. Why did you do that? Don't do that to me. Yes, I went to Twitch and I set it to upload the motion-controlled ARMS stream. So that will be on my YouTube channel. YouTube.com/user/GameBabble show. Let me double check that. Do you have to put user? Yes. YouTube.com/user/GameBabble show. Go there in, I don't know, half hour or so, and look for the one labeled ARMS Saturday, flailing and failing. That's what I called it. And it's, that one's a winner. That one's a winner. So yes, welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. And with that, it's time to talk about ARMS. If you're unfamiliar with ARMS, it is, and this is what's really sad, the first actually, well, okay, there was snipper clips in 1-2 Switch, but this is like the first really big Switch exclusive game, and it's kind of a fighting game, but the gimmick is all the characters have extendable spring arms and punch one another. And people looked at it initially and were like, it looks kind of alright, but then they really fleshed it out and they were like, here's more characters, here's more modes, here's the ability to mix and match your different arms, and like now it's actually shaping up to be a real fighting game, and it comes out on the 16th of June, so not too far away, but they need to do a server test, and so they did the ARMS Test Punch, which there will be another one this weekend. They're swapping out volleyball for basketball, but yeah, basically at certain times for 1 hour, you can get in and play ARMS. You can download the demo now, and then you have an hour to play it before they take the servers down. Why the 1 hour limit? That's a good question. I think that's to maximize server load. Because if it was like, oh, you can play all day, well then, you know, different people would be coming in at different times, and the server population would be, you know, whatever. But you say you can only play 1 hour at this time. That means everyone who's interested is trying to log in at about the same time. You get the best concentration you can possibly get of users. So that's likely why they're doing it that way, because they need to test those servers, and things are looking pretty good. I'm very pleased with what I'm seeing with in terms of online play. But first of all, ARMS. It's more of a projectile fighter hybrid boxing game than it is like an actual regular fighter. Like, there's no special moves, there's no combos, there's nothing really complicated about it. You shoot your arms out and you curve them, and you can jump and you can dash. It's pretty basic, and then what your arms do depend on what arms you put on, because there's a wide array of different arms, and you attach them, and like one of them is, you've got the regular boxing glove, and then you've got one that's got like a chakram on the end, and after the arm shoots out, it shoots the chakram and it goes around in a circle. Then you've got another one that's got a hammer on the end, and when it shoots out, it like bonks you on the head with the hammer. Another one's like a bunch of missiles on strings that shoot out one after another. And then there's the blorb, which is called the gel arm in Japan, so obviously I like it. It's like this gelatinous blob arm that you shoot out, and it arcs and then bounces along the ground. And then you have the dragon arm, which is this arm you shoot out, and then it stops, opens its mouth, and shoots a laser out of it. So there's like a bunch of different just crazy arms you can equip. And they've said that they're going to keep updating the game with free patches after release with more characters, stages, and arms. So expect more arms. I'm expecting a drill. Like, the fact that there's not a drill in there already shocks me, especially because of Twintel. So, yeah, it's weird because it's very simplistic, but that's the thing Nintendo's been trying to chase for a while. Like, even back in the NES days, they actually had a kind of extendable armed fighter back on NES that was only released in Japan called Joy Mech Fight. They were like, hey, we want to get in on this Street Fighter 2 thing on the NES, and so what they did was they had just a bunch of floating sprites making little robots that fought one another, and special moves were like, I think they were just A, B, in a direction, were how you did all the special moves, so that was Nintendo inventing easy operations mode. And then, of course, you have Smash Brothers, which is probably one of the finest easy-to-play fighters ever made. You got your regular attack button, you got your special attack button, and you just hit different directions and the appropriate attack button to do different moves. It's beautifully simple. But that game has gotten kind of complicated, and there's kind of a huge skill gap between the hardcore players and the casual ones. They're like, we want to shrink that. Now, Pokken comes to a lot of people's minds, and they were trying to do that. It has no complex inputs, but Pokken is mind-bending. If you've never played it, it is mind-bending even for a hardcore fighting game fan. Because Pokken is two completely different fighters that you're switching back and forth between like it's WarioWare. Like, field mode is your Virtual On Gundam EX versus type of combat. And then when you get into the close range mode, it plays a lot closer to Smash Brothers meets Street Fighter. And like in that one, you're constantly switching back and forth, and a lot of people get really frustrated with that. I love it, but it's like, yeah, no, people usually prefer one gameplay style over the other and get annoyed when it constantly switches back and forth. And trying to explain the mechanics is hard. If you check out my channel, I have a thing called How to Play Pokken in Less Than 5 Minutes, where I do my best to try to simplify an explanation of how Pokken works. Oh, but that game is weird. I'm expecting a Switch port of that eventually. Like, that was the thing. A couple people were looking at this, they realized Nintendo has had other arena fighters with Pokken and Custom Robo, and they're like, wow, fans of those must be pissed. And Custom Robo's a little out of Nintendo's hands. It's sort of a second-party game. And then Pokken is made by Namco. But the thing is, Pokken has been upgraded in the arcades, and those patches haven't come to the Wii U version. And that game would be great on the Switch. There's a bunch of things. But, no, I'm glad that Nintendo made something new because the Switch needed something new. So, getting back to ARMS. Very simple combat. You just shoot out your arms and they do things. Now, here's what's important. Motion control is not required. It is there, and they force you to use it in the tutorial, but you don't need it. In fact, switching back and forth from motion control to regular button-based control has never been easier. You just put it in the holder. Like, seriously, when I was playing online, I did a motion control match, and I was like, I want to go back to regular controls. And all I had to do was slip the controllers back in the holder. Like, the countdown timer for the start of the match was going as I was switching from motion control to regular controls. And they work fine. The motion controls work. It's not Wii. This is not the Wiimote. This is much closer to the Wii Motion Plus, minus the need for constant recalibration. The tilt sensing is much, much better than what we've had in the past. But it's still waggle control rather than true motion control. It's not one-to-one. It's, you shake the controller, do sort of a punching motion to shoot your arm out, and then you twist it to curve your punch. And then to move around, you have to move both controllers simultaneously. And while it works, I found it to be a little bit hard to gauge where exactly I'm moving, since I'm just holding two pieces of plastic in the air. And more than that, it requires a greater arm movement, and that limited my mobility. See, I played Ribbon Girl for almost the entire demo, because she's amazing, she's going to be top tier. Ribbon Girl's special ability is she gets 4 jumps and 2 air dashes. So she could just stay in the air and jump and dash around like crazy. It's really hard to take advantage of that with motion control, because you have to move your arms way too much to get that kind of fast movement. You just don't feel the same accuracy you do with the stick. But playing on a regular pad and just hitting different directions and tapping X and Y really fast felt great. I was zipping all over the place, and you can use like L and R to shoot out your fists. And yeah, it worked pretty darn well. In the video I mentioned earlier, the one labeled Arms Test Punch, Flailing and Failing, I try my darndest to give the motion control a decent shot, and I just get fed up. But you can see me trying to use the motion control. I gave it the old college try. No, you want to use the regular control. And obviously the regular controls are also included, so that way you can play 2-player with the little half controllers. But yeah, so, ARMS. Very basic game. You're just shooting out your arms and you're curving them around. It's kind of like a slower Gundam EX Versus with some weird twists to it. But it's a very, very simple and easy to play game. Speaking, like I said, plays great on the pad. But speaking of the motion control, you know what else didn't impress me? The HD rumble. When playing as Ribbon Girl, I throw a punch and I feel how they're trying to make it feel like a ribbon's actually unfurling from inside the controller. I could feel it a little bit, but unfortunately, like, the back vibration from the plastic made it feel like the ribbon was, like, literally inside of the controller, and eventually, like, the magic wore off and it started to just feel like a buzzing controller, and then I didn't even notice it anymore. I did not find it more immersive. I felt that the difficulty of gauging how I'm trying to move with these loose motion controls took me out of the action more than it absorbed me in. And again, I am actually a proponent of motion control. If you heard me talk about how much I love the PlayStation Move, and I actually hate Sony, but the PlayStation Move is a thing of beauty. And you play Gladiator Duel on Sports Champions, and it's freaking great. But that was real motion control. This is waggle control, and I don't like. It's nice. I will say though, it's nice for kids. There is a video someone posted online of like a 4-year-old girl winning at arms, and she was using the motion control, because that makes so much sense when you're really, really young, where it's like, okay, this is a fighting game, how do I move? Well, I just move the everything in the direction I want to go, and then I punch by just punching. So I could see the appeal to kids a lot. And I will say, you do get a little bit more control over your fists. You do and you don't when you're using the motion control. Because, like, one thing you do is, like, have your right punch curve left and then go right. And then your right punch curve left and then curve right and then go left and make, like, this weird cross zigzag thing. You can do that, and it's a little bit harder to do on... It's a little bit weirder to do on pad than it is on motion control, because, of course, since each controller is a separate detector, you kind of wind up having two different analog sticks for your fists, but in the end, it doesn't really matter, and the advantage of having the better mobility of the regular controls is... I think that overall matters way, way more. And you could still pull that move off with a pad. I've done it. So, yeah. And like I said, there's no special moves in the game, but there are character differences. I mentioned Ribbon Girl, where she can quadruple jump and air dash, and she can also, like, instantly fall to the ground, too. And so she's really good. Ninjara's the other one that's looking really good, because every time Ninjara air dashes, he teleports. So he's completely invincible. He's teleporting. He is not there. So... And he teleports super fast, so some of, like, the better players found that they could actually... This will probably get patched, because they could actually teleport around a player faster than the camera could turn. That's some ninja tech. Helix, or DNA Man, as he's called in Japan, the weird gelatinous guy, he can squash and stretch. You hold the dash button, and he will squish down to the ground. And you hold the jump button, and he will stretch himself out. And you can just do some weird things with that. And he's just weird. He's fun to play because of just the way he over-animates and squashes and stretches and wiggles around. There's actually a surprising number of Helix fans who just love how bizarre that character is. And then Mechanica, which is the girl in the mech suit, she has hover jets. She can hold jump and hover in the air for a while. Master Mummy, on the other hand, who's like the heavyweight, he can heal. You just sit there and block for a while, and he'll start healing. And then Min Min, who is the Chinese girl, every time she dashes, she does a kick. And that can actually kick away different punches and sort of deflect them. So, yeah, there's... And then the main character, Spring Man, when his health gets low, his fists are always charged. That's the thing I forgot to mention. That's the weapon effects. You see, if you hold jump or you hold dash, your fists will charge up and start sparking in different ways depending on what element they are. Every weapon has an elemental effect. So if it bursts into flame, you've got fire, and you can hit someone, they'll burn, and electricity will stun them, and the blorb can put a big old splat on their screen. And you get these effects if you charge up your weapons. And I was worried that would unbalance the game, but no, the effect lasts a very, very short amount of time. And the fact that you have to charge up and then actually land that hit, yeah, that definitely makes it a bit harder. Like, to just hit with that. Because I tried a bunch of times to hit with the electricity before going into a rush. Rush is basically your super mode, and that's where you can just spam punches everywhere. It's pretty nutty. Now, big question, how's the online play? Answer, fantastic. The netcode was great. I experienced no lag. Other people who did experience lag, it was a little weird because they'd see their punches go through the enemy. But I experienced no lag. It ran super great. And in the demo, all they gave you was party mode. And in party mode, 8 players or more if they're playing 2-player, because you can actually do 2-player online versus the world. But 8 players, 8 different consoles, link up, and they've got little floating bubbles in this room, and the game just automatically matches them up and makes matches happen. It's like, okay, you 2, 1-on-1. You, 2-on-2 teams. 3-player free-for-all. Do volleyball now. 2-on-2 volleyball. Another 3-on-3 free-for-all. Hey, 4-player free-for-all. It just matches people up super fast, and when you're waiting to be matched up, you can go into a little training minigame thing. So there is a way to, like, spend time. But when you get matched up, you only do one round, so it lasts a super short amount of time, and there's no waiting. Like, since it's a cartridge, there's almost no loading, and you're just constantly, okay, you two, go, boom, fight over, next, boom. Like, it's getting you into matches really good, but a few times it got stuck. Like, I ran into a few too many 3-player matches sometimes, and there are times where you'll just notice bubbles are sitting there and not matching up. And a lot of that is because it doesn't want to match the same 2 players up immediately afterwards, because otherwise they'd just keep fighting one another, because their match would always end at the same time. But so they need to balance that out a little bit, where there's like a timeout before it matches you back up again. But it's super fun. Just the sheer speed of how fast they throw matches at you. And, yeah, so that was neat. And the volleyball mode was surprisingly fun. They're going to be swapping that out for the basketball mode this next upcoming weekend for its test punch. Oh, and I forgot to go into detail on this. I'm sorry. Yeah, you can do 2-player co-op on a single console versus the internet. And in party mode, you count as 1 player. Like, because it's linking up 8 consoles together, and if those consoles all have 2 players on them, then fine, 16 players are linked together. But what it does for that is, if it can get both players in a match simultaneously, it'll do that, but otherwise it alternates between the 2. So sometimes it'll be like, okay, only player 1 is fighting this time, and then the next one it'll be like, okay, only player 2 is fighting this one. So if you get into like a 2-on-2 match, yeah, both players get to play at the same time, usually. It has a weird system for determining what it does, but it does look fun. That is a great way for you, like, it looks like a really fun way to spend a day with a friend. Just you and a friend chilling out on a couch with playing party mode as it throws all the different types at you. This next weekend, if I get a chance to play, I'm probably going to have to try playing with the half controller and see how that goes. But yeah, all in all, I really, really liked it. I would say it's not a system seller. It is no Splatoon. Like, Splatoon, that was like some kind of crazy brilliance. And, like, if you don't believe me, you gotta understand, Splatoon is not a third-person shooter, it's Pac-Man. You have to think of Splatoon like Pac-Man. And once you wrap your brain around looking at Splatoon like Pac-Man, except 4-on-4, where you're simultaneously Pac-Man and the Ghost Monster at the same time, once you grasp that, the game becomes amazing and it all makes sense. But if you try to play it as a third-person shooter, it's kind of terrible, because the main thing I say with Splatoon is, what do you do in Pac-Man? You run away until you eat the power pellet, and then you eat all the ghosts. But most of the time, you're spent running away from ghosts. And the idea of a third-person shooter where you spend most of your time running away sounds terrible, until you realize that you're playing Pac-Man, and then it's amazing. Like, Splatoon is one of the smartest things Nintendo has done in years. It deserves all the praise and hype that it gets, especially in Japan. That is a system seller. ARMS, not so much, but it's very fun, easy to play and understand. You can get your head around it really easy. Netcode is great, good variety of modes, and you've got collectible arms. I'm curious to see how that plays out. And, yeah, it's looking really promising, and it comes out on the 16th, so thank goodness. It's not going to be too long of a wait, because I'm really excited to get in there and start playing online. I know at least one other person who's going to be playing it, like, super hardcore. Gonna go MLG Pro with ARMS, and I'm curious to see how that all plays out. But mostly, I'm excited to start collecting arms, because that's one of the big things, is as you fight, you collect these coins, and you put them in the arm catcher to get different arms you can use, and then you can mix and match arms. So right now, all, like, Ribbon Girl can use is an electric regular punch, a party popper, and a slap-a-mander. And I'm like, okay, punch and slap-a-mander, that's fine. But if I could play Ribbon Girl with a chakram, y'all are going to be in some trouble. So I'm very excited to get to try that and mix and match different arms. And who knows, maybe Ribbon Girl's greater air mobility will make the Blorb more powerful. And I'm curious to see how it all plays out. So that's where I'm at with ARMS. I'm loving it. I can't wait for more. But yeah, it's not exactly Splatoon. Anyway, gonna take another break, and then after the break, we will talk about Star Trek Bridge Crew. But until then, here is That's What I Like by Bruno Mars, here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you for listening, and please enjoy. Hello, you are listening to 89.5 The Wave, KCFV, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and this is GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. So, before the break, we talked ARMS, we talked Fightergeddon, we talked about all sorts of crazy stuff going on in gaming right now, because for some weird reason, that whole, summer game drought thing, yeah, it's not a thing anymore. You get it. I don't even want to think about what I'm going to have to do when E3 happens. But yes, if you want to see some ARMS in action, I streamed it 3 freaking times. They're all on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/user/GameBabble show. So go ahead and look that up, though I make no guarantees about the content. I've been cutting back on swearing in my actual edited reviews, but streams are stream of consciousness, so I make no guarantees about what I said. I'm sure it's nothing too terribly terrible. I probably swore a lot at the motion controls. I can almost guarantee that. I was pretty frustrated by those. But the actual game is so good once you get rid of the motion controls. And, yeah. So that's a good thing to watch. The first video is definitely, let me explain, the 3 streams, the first one is definitely me feeling it out and understanding the basics. The second one, it's like, okay, I've had a day to stew it over and really think about how these mechanics work. And I talk about that and ponder that a lot, but the third one's the best one, because that's the one where I try to get the motion controls to work. I give them an honest shot, and I give up because I'm in a room filled entirely with Japanese players that got really, really good at the game. And I was like, I'm sick of dragging my team down. Let me just play. So that's what happened there. Again, you can look that up on my YouTube. But now is the time to talk about Star Trek Bridge Crew, because that finally came out. What is Star Trek Bridge Crew? Well, it's a VR game available on not just PlayStation VR, but also the Vive and the Oculus as well, where you play a crew member in Star Trek. Now, it's not based on any specific series. They actually do a very good job of just making this your Star Trek. No wacky guest appearances by Captain Kirk and Spock. No, hey, here's an alternate universe Patrick Stewart. It takes place in the new movie universe, sort of, with the design of the ship, but it could really be almost any Trek universe. And I like the fact that it's sort of ambiguous Star Trek. Because really, when you think about it, with the new movies, it's the characters and what they do that make it more than the iPoddery of the ships. And honestly, they don't look quite as excessively iPod-ful in this game. Like I said, it's a good ambiguous Star Trek, and you play your own character. There is a character creator where you can customize yourself, but it's very limited. There, you can only be human or Vulcan, male or female. There's 4 human heads and 2 Vulcan heads. And 4 hairstyles. And then there's a convoluted slider bar system where you've got 4 different feature sliders that are effectively unlabeled. And as you increase one, the others decrease. I thought about it and I figured out what it is, but I don't want to get into it because I understand it now. Let's just be blunt here. Basically, the 4 sliders are race sliders. And you can blend those however you want to get some relatively unique facial features. So it's very, very basic character creation, but it's nice that it's there. I just wish there was more hairstyle options, because almost all the hair is the same and super short. And you'd think that at least, give the ladies the space bob cuts. They're on the freaking cover of the game. Everyone knows that in the future, everyone will wear their hair in a bob. So why is that not in there? But aside from that, yeah, you play your own character, and you're on, for the main story mode, you're on the USS Aegis, which is, made-up ship going on a made-up story in, an ambiguous Trek universe. It's your Trek, not you playing out the experiences of other Star Treks. And I do like that. So, we're off to a good start. But of course you're going to say, but what about classic Star Trek? Well, that was part of the reason for the delay. They realized that this was a big anniversary year for Star Trek. They're like, let's do something to celebrate. So they delayed it so that way they could put in the original Enterprise. See, other than the main story mode with all the different chapters and the preset things, they also have a thing called Continuing Voyages, which is just randomly generated Star Trek missions. And in that one, you could be on the Aegis or the original Enterprise. And that was a really good call. Because, let's just be blunt, a planned out, written, scripted campaign is generally better than a, how do I put this, a randomly generated one. Unfortunately, we got things going on, so I am going to have to get back to you. Please enjoy God If You're Above by Falling in Reverse, and I will be right back. Enjoy the music here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Hello, you are listening to 89.5 The Wave, KCFV, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and this is GameBabble Live. Sorry for that interruption. I just got a traffic update. Apparently, the traffic lights in Bridgeton between Harmony and Fifi are out. I repeat, the traffic lights out in Bridgeton between Harmony and Fifi, they're out. So, if you're in that zone, yeah, that might be a thing. But getting back to what I was talking about, we were talking about Star Trek Bridge Crew, PlayStation VR game where you get to play a crew member on the bridge of a starship in the Star Trek universe. And it's pretty cool because, like I said, it's not based really on anything. It's sort of this ambiguous Trek adventure that's very much your own. You're on the USS Aegis, you make your own character, and you're going on your own adventures. And I like that. And I love the fact that it has a planned out central written campaign and randomly generated missions. Because a central campaign is always better. Something actually planned is better than randomly generated because people put time and effort into thinking out how everything should play out to have the best impact. But that campaign ends eventually. After probably about 5 hours, you'll have run through that campaign. And then you'll be like, well, now what? I still want to fly my ship around. It's Star Trek. It's a dream come true. I'm on the bridge of a starship, and now I've just beaten the game. Now what? Well, that's where the randomly generated missions are great, because, look, I hate to say, it's got infinite replayability, because those missions are gonna get old and boring eventually. Perhaps faster than I expect. I haven't actually tried any of them yet. But the fact that they're there to give you something where it's like, okay, I am going to be faced with a challenge I don't know or expect, that's good. Now, the first thing that... I should mention, though, about the original Enterprise is that it's accurate. See, apparently there's this guy who spent 15 years recreating the bridge of the Enterprise in his house accurately. And the developers paid him a visit. They're like, okay, we're going to put in the original bridge. We need to see this thing. And they were like, accuracy first. Like, let's not change anything. There's a button you can press that'll put labels on everything and tell you what things do that only you can see, but the interface is convoluted and dumb because the original Enterprise was not designed to be a functional ship. It was designed to look complicated and futuristic in the late 60s, early 70s. That means that one of the stations just has like an array of 100 randomly rainbow-colored flashing buttons. And that was effective on TV because you look at that and it's like, wow, whatever that person does, it's complex and they are very smart. Look at them being smart, pushing the right buttons to make the ship not blow up. But now, when you're standing there, you're like, that's a lot of buttons. That is a lot of buttons. Who would put this many buttons here? Especially because, like, since it was so old, the original Enterprise was a very analog endeavor. It didn't really have, like, a lot of view screens on it, really, other than the central view screen. So it's kind of funny seeing, like, I need to see it again, but, like, the radar isn't even, like, a real radar. It looks like it's a piece of paper with another piece of paper representing the enemy ship moving around on it, and then, like, some little blinking LEDs. It's like, oh, man, I can't wait to try that, but that is considered sort of the hard mode of the game. You want to go on the nice, easy, touchscreen-filled USS Aegis to understand how the game works and what you're trying to do before you go into the convoluted nightmare zone that is the original Enterprise. Again, brilliant. Now, this is one thing that surprised me about this game, though, is the space requirement. I'm playing the PlayStation VR version, of course, which is probably the worst version to play, but it's still very playable. And you can actually play it with the DualShock 4 controller, even though that very much sort of ruins the effect. But if you're doing it with the DualShock controller, then you don't have to really worry too much. You don't have to worry about space at all. But if you're going to play it properly with two moves in your hand, space is actually an issue, which is funny. I've played Farpoint. Farpoint. I've played Mortal Blitz, where you're actually, like, standing up and ducking and hiding behind boxes. And yet, it's the game where you sit at a computer and push buttons that needs more space. Because the thing is, number one, you have a lot of panels, and they're very spread out, which is actually good design, because that means it can be very clear about where you're pressing your buttons. But yeah, you are going to be leaning all the way to, like, the left and right areas of the camera to hit all these buttons and control panels that are in front of you. And of course, if it loses tracking of your controller, you're in trouble. And I found that my seat was seated too close to the camera, and it would constantly lose track of where my hands were. And I'm still trying to figure out the most optimal way to do this, because the way I've been playing it recently is more back from the camera in a folding chair, but that's far enough away that my view winds up getting kind of wiggly on the PlayStation VR. That's the thing, like, with the PlayStation VR, it is good to sit as close to the camera as possible, otherwise, like, your view can get kind of shaky. So, but in that case, you don't have as much room to move your arms around. What you need a chair, and you need a camera that will see from, you need to position your camera so that way it can see, like, a little past your maximum arm length and down and from your head, because it needs to track the actual headset, down to a little past your knees, because a lot of these control panels are actually really low, and you want a chair that doesn't have arms. I know that sounds strange, but you don't think about this, but in Star Trek, the captain's chair, its armrests with the buttons are really, really low. And as such, when I was trying to be the captain, I couldn't hit the buttons because my armrests were in the way of the armrest. But yeah, definitely play through the tutorial. This is very much a game. The tutorial is optional, but it's not. You need to play through it. to understand what you're doing and what all the roles are. So what are the roles? You have the captain. They sit in a chair, they can access tons of information screens, and they tell everyone else what to do. They can pretty much target things, and that's about it. They can target things, answer signals, and mostly it's just having all the information in front of them to tell everyone else what to do. The helmsman is going to be doing the most because they actually fly the ship, and they get a really dumb interface. I would fire whoever designed this starship. Nothing wrong with, like, the actual game, but they actually have it set up where whoever's commanding this, who's driving the starship, is doing so with a little circle on a touch panel in front of them. And it's, like, really dumb. It's like, no, I don't care how far into the iPod future you are, you're gonna fly a freaking spaceship. Give me a joystick. But no, touch panel. Ooh, the ship will crash so hard. And you do have to, like, compensate for, like, the drift in space. It can be kind of a thing. The tactical officer scans things, and they get to fire torpedoes and phasers. And they actually don't have to actually target anything. Like, I thought maybe they'd be moving a crosshair around. No. Other people, they just have to click on something and then hit their pew-pew buttons, and it goes. So that's how that goes. And then the engineer, they get to control the power, and that's the one I did. And that seems like it would be the most boring job, but I kind of enjoyed it just from how I played it. What the engineer does is they have, like, a certain number of power units. They have, like, 3 different bars representing the phasers, the engine, and the shields. And they can take power from one and add it to another. So you can be like, okay, well, we don't need phasers right now, so let me drop that down and crank up the engine so you can go super fast. But the more power you have to phasers, the longer your range is. And then the more... Oh, dear. I've got more, flashing lights, so please enjoy Bang Bang by Green Day. I'm terribly sorry. Hold on. And, well, thank you for listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. We'll be right back after Bang Bang. Hello, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and before things exploded mildly over here, I was talking about Star Trek Bridge Crew, a VR game where you get to actually be on a starship in Star Trek and hit buttons. And I was discussing the engineer role, because that's the role I was actually playing last night. And it's kind of interesting. Like I said, you've got 3 different, like, basically you control the power of the ship. And, yeah, one of them is phaser power, which determines what your range is for firing. Engines, which determines how fast you can go and if you can go into warp. And, of course, shield strength. And you have a limited amount of power, and you're juggling it between those things. And believe it or not, there's actually a button you can press to reroute power. And then you're actually, like, you can take even more power and divert it into other things to possibly even boost them past their maximum. But you start doing that, and you risk damaging the ship. On top of that, you are in charge of charging the warp coils for warp. But that's a minor thing. You flip the warp switch, you hit the button, and then there's a countdown, and then it's up to the helmsman to actually hit warp. But you are also in charge of sending out repair crews. You hit your repair button, and then you've got 3 repair crews that's like, and 6 different, like, things that need to be fixed. If you put more repair crews on one thing, it can be fixed faster, but you have to juggle and balance that, and that's what being the engineer is all about. In a lot of ways, it seems very boring, because, I mean, all you're doing is sitting there, it's like, put the power here, put the power here. But it got interesting for me, because, of course, I know the entire ship depends on this. See, in this game, you don't just play single player. There's a single player mode, but you are supposed to play it online with 4 people, a full crew, each one doing their job. And how my job affects everyone else's job is something that I find incredibly interesting. Because So I have to pay attention and listen. When I'm playing, I'm like, okay, the captain is saying we're going to start moving and we need to move fast. What can I divert some power from to shove it into the engine so we can go max speed? And that's like, oh, we're entering a dangerous area. Do we really need all that speed in the engines? Because I think we could use more power to shields. Or, oh, we're in a firefight. Do we need more range on our phasers or more range on the or greater strength on the shields? On top of that, I'm the one who gets to see what the ship's health is, how the shields are doing, and of course, I'm looking at all those things that need to be fixed. Last night, we skipped ahead to Mission 4. And in that one, you, start with your ship completely wrecked. And that was, the most interesting for engineering, because all the systems are damaged. They're at, 20, 30%. Your warp engines are down. Your phasers are down. Your shields are down. And that's just how you start the mission. And I'm like, well, crap, what do we need? Because all systems are offline. What do I fix first? How do I fix it? Because we're also surrounded by enemies that are shooting at us. So it's like, okay, do I put everyone on shields? Do we need to get out of here faster? Which one of these do we need to prioritize? Shields or the engines or the ability to fight back? I'm juggling all of this, and it actually gets really interesting. Star Trek Bridge Crew is a weird game like that. Because it's the kind of game that is simultaneously, it's very niche, because it's not a fast-paced action game. You're not flying out there and blowing things up like crazy. There is a lot of time of just floating around and scanning anomalies. And a lot of what you do is just poke a few buttons on a console and then tell everyone, I poked the buttons on the console, it's all good. But it is that social aspect, the interaction between players that make it fun. First mission is actually running the Kobayashi Maru simulation, and that was pretty fun. I was playing with a particularly wacky crew last night. What should I expect? I was playing at 2 a.m. And, we decided, the captain was like, no, we're just gonna blow up the Kobayashi Maru and blame it on the Klingons. And the game actually let us blow up the Kobayashi Maru. And it gave us a good job. It's like, good job, you did it. And I'm like, you shouldn't be congratulating us. We attacked our allies and blew them up. But it was the Kobayashi Maru. And then someone mispronounced it, and now it's the Mariachi Maru. Oh, and that's what makes it fun. And the social part is very interesting, because number one, was a very nice thing as crossplay. People playing on PC can play with people playing on PlayStation VR. It's all good. And I can see, the individual finger movements of someone using the Oculus Touch as they do different hand gestures that I can't do. And I was like, that's really neat. I thought that was really neat. I was very happy that that's a thing, because again, though you can play single player, this is a social game. You want to be playing with other players. And the install base for all VR is a little iffy. So, letting all the VR players get in there and play some Star Trek, that's kind of a game changer. That means that you should be able to find crews to fly around with for a good long while to come, thank goodness. And, they set it up very well so there's not too many strange arm motions. You actually see the other players moving their arms and heads and talking in real time. When you talk into the microphone, it makes your character's mouth move, and it's sort of lip-synced to what you're saying. And you can see their arms moving on the keyboard, how they move their head, and their actual body language is transferred across the internet to you. And the crazy thing is they're all in swivel chairs. That surprised me. If you turn too far to the left or the right, your character's chair will actually move back and forth. So there was one time where a guy, turned to talk to the captain. I watched him, swivel in his chair, and it was like it was really the show. And he's turning and talking to the captain. Captain, we've found the thing in the anomaly and stuff. And it was like, this is neat. This is so neat. So very much it's that social aspect. Unfortunately, it's always a catch, especially because this is Ubisoft. Number one, even though they were smart enough to put in a single player and a randomly generated mission mode, meaning that this is a game you will be wanting to play for years to come if you're a Star Trek fan, you won't be able to. You know why? It requires an internet connection even to play single player because, Ubisoft Play thing. Because Ubisoft has this dumb setup, like the Uplay thing, where you're earning Ubisoft points and you have an Ubisoft friends list, which in this case, kind of good, because that means I can friend people who aren't on PlayStation. So that's good. I can meet back up with some of the people I met last night. That's great. And I found that when they have a game in progress, you can attempt to join the game, because I got disconnected due to a bug, and I was able to hop back into my role as the engineer in the middle of their mission. I didn't know what was going on, but I knew how to engineer. And yeah, but on the flip side, there was that bug where everyone, like the crew was like, we're having a lot of fun, let's all friend one another so we can meet back up again. And I tried to friend someone, and they were on PlayStation along with me, so it tried to bring up like their Ubisoft profile and their PlayStation profile at the same time, and since it's trying to connect to the Ubisoft network and the PlayStation network while trying to maintain its connection to the Star Trek Bridge Crew servers, it wound up creating an internet traffic jam, and nothing could connect to anything ever, and I had to restart the system because it was just connection lost all over the place. Everything was just going bad. Thankfully, that person was on PlayStation, so I could look at their PlayStation friend request and accept that. But, yeah, it was a bit sloppy. I felt it took me a minute to figure out where the freaking friends list even was in Star Trek Bridge Crew and how to accept that. And then last night, I was mentioning that mission where we were outgunned and outnumbered and everything was broken, Mission 4. Yeah, we broke that. That was how we ended the night. We were being shot at and just weren't taking damage. And even though the objective of the mission was just to survive, we were like, we're not just going to sit here for 7 minutes doing nothing. So we called it off. But yeah, I managed to fix the entire ship. Everything was great. It's just the game was convinced we were still in impulse travel and we weren't taking damage. So, and we've all had some connection hiccups and issues, and they probably should have made the language select a little more obvious, because the first lobby that I got into, the guy didn't speak English, and the other guy in the lobby was like, oh crap, he doesn't speak English. So we had to leave, which I feel bad about, but I mean, the game is literally all about communication and talking to your crewmates, so if you don't speak English and I don't speak whatever language you're speaking, I'm a little bit screwed there. Though I do like the fact that it is not restricted to your country as well. If they can speak some English, let's go. Welcome aboard the USS whichever ship we're in now. Aegis, Enterprise, I don't know. Both. Just welcome aboard, yeah. And they should have made the language select thing a bit more obvious, because you can use that to choose what language lobbies you wind up in. And yeah, I did not know that was even there. It just automatically knew English for me, defaulted to that. Actually good at defaulted to that. I'm playing on a Korean PlayStation 4. Which only makes everything even more confusing, because I can't tell when select is X or select is O. But yeah, so there's some hiccups and some bugs in Star Trek Bridge Crew. If you're going to be playing with moves on the PlayStation VR, you're going to need a lot of space, and you're going to be fiddling with your camera to get it just right, and you will be surprised how annoying armrests can be. But while it is definitely a niche game that will only appeal to people who think the idea of trying to fly a starship with 3 other people and, poking buttons on a screen to divert power in engineering sounds like fun, then, oh yeah, they're going to love this game, because that's what you do. So many people I met online were like, this is a dream come true for me. I'm a very casual Trek fan, so it's not as big a deal for me, but I was happy to hear so many people were enjoying it so thoroughly. And because we all know what Star Trek is, and we know Star Trek in general isn't fast action, a lot of people, even though it's a niche concept, they immediately grasp it. It's like, oh, Star Trek bridge crew. You're on a bridge crew in Star Trek. That means you're poking buttons and diverting power to shields. I get it. But yeah, if that doesn't sound like a good time to you, I would not recommend it. But it's such a weird and interesting game because that is what you do. I'm loving it. I'm definitely going to play me some more bridge crew. I can't wait to feel confident enough to try to fly the original Enterprise. I wonder if, I wish there was a training mode for the original Enterprise. I want to try it out. I wonder if the original Enterprise has a proper friggin' joystick to fly with, instead of stupid touchscreen. And we'll watch, the original Enterprise will be easier to maneuver than the Aegis. Touchscreen controls, I don't like them anyway. Anyway, this show airs from noon to 3 p.m., and we are coming up on the end of the hour, and I have talked about all of the things. Wow, it has been quite a thing. Oh, one more thing that just popped up, though. Square Enix is teasing they might make a new Secret of Mana game. No guarantees, and considering how a lot of the recent Secret of Mana attempts have been, it could also be complete garbage. But we are being teased on a new Secret of Mana game. It could come out. That might be a thing. Hopefully it'll come out before 3 years. How's it going, Final Fantasy VII Remake and Kingdom Hearts 3? But yes, I think that about sums it all up. There's one thing I need to do here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I think I'm going to call the show. Thank you so much for listening to GameBabble Live. I will be back next week. Who knows what will happen then, so please stay tuned. Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. all summer long. GameBabble Live here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy the music. And now, this goes out to all the taxi drivers. Because, hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go! Yeah.